Good morning, everyone. I'm calling this meeting of the Salton Ski Authority to order on September 18th, 2025. At this point in time, I will ask if Supervisor Singh will lead us into the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand.
Good time.
Thank you. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point in time, we'll have Sorry, at this point in time, we'll have roll call.
Yeah.
Good morning. President Dockstader,
Present.
Vice President Estrada, Secretary Singh,
Present.
Director Aguilar,
Here.
Director Cardenas,
Good morning, President.
Director Kelly,
Here.
ex officio Joe Shea.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Did they ask you? What about Director Morales?
Treasurer Morales.
Here. Yay. Thank you so much. At this point in time, I will ask if there are changes to the agenda, and I will go ahead and ask. It was not posted on our website. We do have an emergency at the pleasure of the board. If for a Prop 4 funding letter of support, if we could discuss adding that, if we could take a vote and add it to the agenda after the consent calendar. And Supervisor Singh will give us a little bit more background on that at that time. If everybody is okay with adding that to the agenda, I'd appreciate that. Can I have a motion?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to add that emergency item Prop 4 to the agenda at this point in time. Because we do have a Zoom, I believe we need a roll call vote.
President Dockstader,
Aye.
Secretary Singh,
Yes.
Treasurer Morales,
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Cardenas.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to public comments at this time. I do believe we have one public comment. Sonia, if you would come up to one of the mics, I'd appreciate that. So that everybody on Zoom, our millions of fans, can hear you as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your time. My name is Sonia Herbert, and I'm from Bombay Beach. And it's really distressing to see the sea shrinking. And I'm wondering, why can't we put water back into the sea? It would end all this mitigation on dust control, and it would be the greatest recreation area in California. If you put the water back in the sea, the geothermal could also benefit from the water. It sounds like an easy fix. I know water is the most precious commodity, but we cannot kill the sea. It's going to get to a point where it's going to be horrendous. So all this money that they're putting in for all this restoration, like the hay bales, they become very detrimental to our area. They're breaking down all the dust in the air. It's getting in the radiators of the cars. It's not really doing the job. We live in the desert, the sand blows. It's something you cannot stop. It's Mother Nature. We really, really need water back into the sea. If there's anybody out there listening that can do something, Elon Musk had the best plan. And I read his plan. He sent it to me. And because I own the ski inn at Bombay, and one of his managers sent it to me to bring water from Carlsbad through the mountains, 70 miles straight shot, pipe in, pipe out. Quarter of the cost, quarter of the time. It was the best plan I've ever seen presented. And I've been to many meetings and listened to many plans. There's got to be a way to save the sea. please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Appreciate your comments.
I will.
Before moving on, I just want to double check. There's no other public comments.
Not at this time.
Thank you. Moving on to board member comments. Does anybody have a comment?
Just good morning. Just wanted to welcome the owner of the Ski Inn and just say that I really enjoy your restaurant, especially the fish and chips, and appreciate you being here at our Salton Sea Authority meeting. But do enjoy being out there and all the community activities out there. But thank you for being here this morning.
I do have a dollar on the wall with my name on it. Oh, we should have a meeting there. That would be fabulous. Lunch followed after. Great idea. All right, if there are no other board member comments, let's move on to the consent calendar. Does anybody have any comments regarding the consent calendar?
There's no comments, Madam President. I'm prepared to make a motion.
I'd love to hear the motion.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Director, although I'm not supposed to call you, oh yeah, Director Cardenas, and seconded by Director Morales to approve the consent calendar. At this point in time, could we have a roll call vote?
President Dockstader.
Aye.
Secretary Singh.
Yes.
Treasurer Morales.
Yes.
Director Aguilar.
Yes.
Director Cardenas.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Moving on to our emergency item, Prop 4. You're up, Cardi.
Thank you so much. Just wanted to share with you this opportunity in which we're asking for some support from the Salton Sea Authority in regards to proposition number 4. During the week, the State Water Resource Board had their meeting. In that discussion, it was shared that there would be over $50 million meant for cross-water river earmarked money. And in that conversation, we want to ensure that our Imperial County receives a portion of those dollars. To share with you, Mayor Diana Nuricumbo from the city of Calexico, IID Director Corinne Eugenio, and myself have scheduled a meeting to meet with the chairman, Joaquin Escobar. And that is going to be an advocacy trip, really talking about the importance of making sure that we do have money that is earmarked for the new river. I want to share that the city of Calexico already has a project in place. They're working on a water treatment plant and could also take a look at great expansion and upgrades that could take place. And therefore, I'm asking the Salton Sea Authority if you can please write us a letter of support as we have our meeting with the chairman of the California Water Resource Board. And that is my request. We want to make sure that we are at the table and that money is going to go into our new river.
I do appreciate it. I'm glad you came forward with this because an alternative would for all that money to go to the Tijuana River, which all these rivers need help everywhere. So I applaud you for bringing this and apologize to the public and everybody. It's just last minute. Sometimes these things come up and it'll be a lot too late by the time we have our next meeting. So I appreciate you coming. I'm in full support. Anybody else have any comments?
I would just, if I may, Madam Chair, or Madam President, defer to our general manager, and just in regards, there is a request for us to support an earmark. Do we maybe know how and what specifically we would be asking? Is it for the capital projects? Is it for operations and maintenance? Or is it maybe for a future project? And I'm just wanted to provide greater details in terms of what the letter of support would look like and how that would impact hydrology and water quality to the Salton Sea.
Well, I with the information that I have available, I would envision that the letter would be not dissimilar to some of the language we used in our request for an equitable share of the Prop 4 monies in set aside for the authority and the conservancy. Hopefully, Imperial County will get a more favorable result than the authority did this time. But But I think that if we just, indicate that we believe that that money border related should address, the broad spectrum of concerns and not ignore the Imperial County as a result of that, I think we can craft it in a way that expresses the intention of the board and gives Director Singh the imprimatur, if you will, of the Salton Sea Authority that we believe that the Imperial County and the Salton Sea deserves consideration as part of the allocation of those resources. And my understanding is that the decision is for that allocation is made by the water board, which is different than the Prop 4 money that we were dealing with, because that was the legislature. And so I think the letter going to Chair Esquivel and the board, I think, would be appropriate. I don't know if ex officio Shea might have some thoughts on this issue. I know he is deeply rooted in this Sacramento realm.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay. In the 5 or so minutes that this has been raised before the board, my only thoughts would be to look at the details of Senate Bill 105, which was signed yesterday and contains the high-level breakdown of kind of how the Prop 4 funding is going to be allocated. The other piece of advice not really advice, I would just note much of the climate bond funding needs to be spent by departments and agencies who first need to go through a rulemaking process to actually be able to allocate that funding. So it might be helpful to take a look at the specific line items and of funding that are contained in Senate Bill 105. And then also maybe get an understanding of, is there going to be a rulemaking process? Because oftentimes that allows for public comment that can be submitted as part of the rulemaking that is able to kind of better wrangle, a particular stakeholder group's interests as it relates to a pot of funding. So those would be my only, two pieces of thought. And to the extent I can be helpful with tracking down information, I'm happy to do that. Thanks.
And I think we can draft the letter. This is going to be a continuing issue, right? And I think we can craft the letter just as a placeholder to make sure that our eyes are on this situation, and we want to make sure that as the border is being addressed, that the Imperial County and the impacts of the new river on the Salton Sea are being appropriately considered.
Madam Chair, again, I do appreciate Mr. Shea's comments regarding Senate Bill 105. I believe there is a cadence, and in order for us to be much more effective in pursuing the earmark, that we do look at those specific details. It's easy for me to say that I would like to focus on water quality, but knowing there's kind of a blueprint on how to ask for the monies, I think it's important. So I have no objection to supporting this request, but I do ask that we look at Senate Bill 105 to ensure that we get a good bang for our buck in terms of the ask that we have before us. And so I'll go ahead and turn that into motion if there's no additional comments.
Thank you. I will go ahead and second. So it has been moved and seconded to approve the Salton Sea Authority authorizing a letter in support of Prop 4 funds. At this point in time, could we have a roll call vote, please?
President Dockstader,
Aye.
Secretary Singh,
Yes.
Treasurer Morales,
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Cardenas.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Gina, I have a question.
Oh, yes.
So
Apologies.
I just have a quick question to follow up on Joe's comment. Is the update we're going to get today on Prop 4 going to include the recent changes that were mentioned a few minutes ago in the detail of what was delineated in the legislation? Is that all going to come today to us?
I think that the focus today is going to be on that portion of Prop 4 that deals specifically with the $10 million allocation for the Salton Sea Authority and the Conservancy, both retrospectively and prospectively. I think that was the intent, and not getting too deep in the weeds on other functional aspects of the implementation of Prop 4.
And who will be doing that?
There'll be representatives from Cruise Strategies.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further comments, I'd like to move on to accounting and finance. Year-end unaudited results.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to the board that we are in the process of completing our audit. There's really two items that I wanted to discuss under this item. One is the year-end results, and I just wanted to highlight that we budgeted a fiscal year net revenue of $17,000, and we ended the year with net revenues of $72,373, which I think is just reflective of our priorities and spending and making sure that we're not spending money that we don't have. As you know, we've wrestled for several years with a bad year that we have been carrying for quite some time. If you look at the funds balance on the balance sheet, you'll notice that the funds balance this year went from a negative $18,859, taking the net income of $72,393. We ended up with a positive funds balance this year for the first time in a while. And it's taken a lot of hard work, the support of our member agencies to get to that point. But we are healthy and postured to continue the important work of the authority. Happy to answer any questions. We do expect to have a complete presentation of the audit at our next board meeting, and are expecting no issues or concerns being raised there.
Does anybody have any questions?
The other issue I wanted to mention is as I had previously advised the board in November of last year, ID Bailey informed us that they could no longer service our account because they didn't have the staffing capacity. And we were somewhat left in a lurch. And I was able to engage on a temporary basis a CPA who I had done business with in the past, who has served us well and faithfully and reasonably and reliably for the last 6 months, but it really never was intended to be a permanent, sustainable solution. I've had conversations with Finance Committee Chair Morales, and we are putting together a strategy for evaluating our needs and enlisting the right services. And it may include a bookkeeper to handle the day-to-day operations with a CPA to oversee the results layered in behind the annual audit that would do that. So I expect to bring that cost structure and proposal to the board at our next meeting. I just wanted to advise you that because there has been some notice raised about this issue, I wanted the board to know that we were aware of it and we are addressing it.
So I would assume this will come with a cost saving.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
I think it will.
I mean, we're hoping it will, because when we're talking about it and trying to figure out what the need is for Salton Sea Authority, there's not as much funds that go out that we need a full-time CPA all
Yeah.
the time. A bookkeeper can balance the books on a regular basis and then just have a CPA overlook quarterly or whenever to make sure that we're ready for the audited financials, because then that'll be done by the CPA firm. But it looks like the load's gonna be light enough that a bookkeeper can handle the day-to-day on
I
that.
think
So
that's
we're hoping that'll be a cost savings.
The only thing that would offset that is any, as depending on we'll be talking about our strategic planning and, any future efforts that the board might take. We want to make sure that our infrastructure is sufficient so that we can do what the board and and the organization's member agencies want us to do. I think it will be a savings. That my goal is to make sure we're providing the appropriate level of service at a fair and equitable and responsible cost. I think it's going to result in savings. I just don't want to promise that right now.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, can we move on to Proposition 4, update cruise strategies, who I believe are online?
And I believe they are online.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. Steve Cruz here. I'm also joined by Nick Romo and Glenn Farrell. They're also part of the team. Good segue to our update on Proposition 4 from the prior conversation. So as you know, we've been working with Patrick and the board, at least over the last 4 or 5 months here. The focus has been on Prop 4 and trying to ensure appropriation for the Salton Sea Authority to carry out your work. And just for context, couple things. One, the legislature, as Joe Shea mentioned, concluded the session on Saturday morning. They came back in the last month with the focus of getting the cap and trade done, which and also included the Prop 4 allocation. As you probably read elsewhere and paid attention, is the debt energy bills. The redistricting took a lot of time, but they were able to pull off some of these top line initiatives. With Prop 4, the language in Prop 4 relative to the Salton Sea, if you recall, there were two categories that were drafted by legislators and approved by voters. There's the $148 million for the Salton Sea management plan. And then there was a specific $10 million, which is kind of the focus for today. And in that language, if you recall, it said, shall be made available for either of the following: the Salton Sea, the creation of the Salton Sea Conservancy, and the Salton Sea Authority. So we, consistent with that language, and we believe the intent of the legislators drafted it, requested $5 million. So an equitable distribution to the Salton Sea Conservancy and the Authority. Unfortunately, the initial proposal from the administration did not include any funding for the Salton Sea Authority. So we engaged with legislators, with board members here who got involved to try to advocate for, an appropriation for the authority. In the end, the decision was to allocate $1.6 million to the Conservancy. Nothing at this point for the authority, but I do think our efforts, I think there was an intent originally to allocate the entire 10, but I think our engagement and your support and reminding folks of the important role that the authority plays and should continue to play in these state funding allocations, I think we were able to sort of maybe hold off getting the entire 10 and give us an opportunity moving forward. I will say specifically with our delegation, we worked very closely with Assemblymember Gonzalez, who was very helpful. And then with Senator Padilla, I think in the end, we were able to work with his office and get a commitment to work and during the 2026 budget cycle with more time. As I mentioned, the legislature and the administration trying to work through a lot of issues in a short period of time. And so there wasn't just the necessary time to get this done, but I feel like we've made progress with the senator's office and I'm confident that we'll be able to work together next year. A lot of members, board members and districts got involved. I'll just mention one for now, but Supervisor Perez, I know, made his way to Sacramento and had several meetings with the budget chairs and with other folks in the administration to advocate for this, for funding for the authority. I'll let Nick and Glenn also jump in here, but I wanted to also say that we were trying to be nimble from the start in terms of what role that we could play. So there wasn't like duplication with the Conservancy. We had several iterations of how we could use the funding for the community outreach, the support of the feasibility study, the continuation of projects that are underway for us with North Lake and Desert Shores. So I think we kind of threw everything at it and said, we're here. We're not going anywhere. And so we want to obviously be considered and be prioritized in doing that. So I know that there'll be continued work on that next year, obviously with the $148 million for the SSMP. We'll obviously want to support you in those efforts. I will say that in addition to Glenn and Nick, we also were able to utilize the support from Martha Guzman Aceves. She, if you know the name, she was most recently the federal EPA administrator for District 9, former PUC commissioner, but more importantly for this issue, she was the advisor to Governor Brown on Salton Sea matters. So brings a ton of experience and knowledge and relationships. So it was good to have her also working with this, at least, you know, as an advisor and working in the community to try to build up support. So that is my update. I don't know if Nick or Glenn want to add any color, but then also for Glenn, to the prior question about the process and the 5 million, and if you wanted to touch on that too.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Maybe that's what I can do next is just kind of do a step back a little bit, more of a macro level about what kind of happened here in the last weeks of the legislative session relative to Prop 4 allocations generally. You all recall Prop 4 was the $10 billion climate resilience bond the voters approved just last November. And there was a game plan to really consider how to roll out and start rolling out some of those dollars this year in this cycle. And ultimately, the legislature agreed on a package that is about a little bit less than a third of the total. They ended up with $3.2 billion in SB 105 that you've already heard about and talked about a little bit this morning. SB 105 was the vehicle. It was a larger budget bill, junior is what they call it, which has a whole bunch of different pieces in it, but it does contain the Prop 4 allocations as well. So it's $3.2 billion total allocation out of Prop 4 in SB 105, of which about $1.2 billion is out of the water resilience chapter of the bond measure. So there's some big ticket sort of things. And most of this was done as was promised in broad allocations to the administering agencies for competitive grants and loans. So there was not a lot of earmarked dollars for any specific projects out of the Prop 4 allocations. It was largely block amounts that were allocated to administering agencies for competitive grant programs. Some of those larger ones included allocations to the State Water Resources Control Board for drinking water quality issues. There was a large allocation of 150 million or so for water recycling to the State Water Board, 230 plus million for dam safety to the Department of Water Resources, things like that. And then, of course, including the 1.6 million for the Salton Sea Conservancy and the 148 million to DWR and the Natural Resources Agency for implementation of the Salton Sea Management Program. So that's kind of the broad construct. And back to the original conversation about the cross-border water quality issues, I just want to kind of flag that, when we look at SB 105, there is what they call budget control language in SB 105. So there's the line item allocation of $46.15 million out of Prop 4 to the State Water Board for water quality purposes. And then in the budget control language, which is the detail that kind of guides the administering agency, it's pretty general. It just says the funds appropriated in this item shall be available for loans or grants for projects that will address water quality problems arising in the California-Mexico cross-border rivers and coastal waters. So very, very general sort of direction and guidance to the State Water Board as to how to utilize those funds. So I think the action that you've taken already this morning to approve the authority to write a letter and to kind of engage in that process makes a lot of sense, because I think that will help to influence and input into that competitive grant and loan making process at the State Water Board. So with that, that's kind of like the overview of what happened with Prop 4. I should say the governor signed it yesterday, so it's done, it's complete, and so now we'll see that process of rolling out dollars. I would suspect that administering agencies would start to do that and start. There are some existing programs already in place, and as Joe Shea said, there's also some need to do some new guidelines and administrative processes for some other allocations. So it's kind of unknown. People all say, when are the dollars going to be out on the street? I don't know. Probably early next year for the most ambitious of projects, and the ones that are already existing will start seeing some grant notices out probably later this year. But I would suspect that most of those dollars will start to kind of be programmed out through grants and loan processes early next year would be my guess. But that's just kind of experience speaking on that. We'll have to see as for each individual allocation. So with that, I'll turn over to Nick. I think Nick has some more context to provide on the specific $10 million issue for the Salton Sea Authority.
Madam President, if I may, though, before they turn it over.
Sure. Well, let's let Alex.
Yeah, and I think specifically, and I do appreciate Mr. Shea's comments regarding the rulemaking. I think the vagueness, or not the vagueness, but just it being so broad that we kind of need to take or consider a more sniper approach to the situation and focus on the rulemaking. And again, I know I'm over my skis in terms of making this comment, but you know, we draft letters and we ask for support, but I think we may have to consider an advocacy component related to the rulemaking of the language because it's so broad. So could I maybe just get some context and color on what our strategy will be in terms of the advocacy of the rulemaking, because those guidelines are really critical in terms of possibly pursuing an earmark or an appropriation specifically for a region. And I'll open it up to whoever can give me some therapy on this.
Well, maybe I'll start. I guess just kind of, just kind of hearing this for the first time this morning, just kind of the interest in that engagement. I guess I speak more generally as to how you can engage in through advocacy at the rulemaking process for some of these grant programs. I think the one thing that we'll have to do first is just kind of understand better whether there's an existing program at the State Water Board for the cross-border water quality control program. My recollection, I'm just kind of going off of recollection, I would need to do a little more deeper dive, but my recollection is there's an existing program at the State Water Board for some of these cross-border water quality issues. So there may not need to be a great deal of reinvention of the wheel here at the State Water Board to start programming out some of those dollars. So that's kind of the first step, is understanding, is there an existing program that they're just going to funnel the dollars through, or do they need to kind of step back and go through a more deliberative rulemaking process that could extend? Either way, once we kind of determine that, it'll help to kind of guide how the advocacy works. But I think either way, it's a function of engagement with the water board members and kind of getting on their radar and letting them know the interest here, the dynamics, the needs of the region and the communities, and engagement also with the program staff who are actually writing, have their hands on the pen for writing how these programs are implemented. So it's a multi-pronged sort of approach, but not unlike how you would kind of do some advocacy in a legislative process as well. Multiple touch points, and but we really need to kind of like step back, I think, and understand what's the infrastructure in place today at the State Water Board for that program, so we can better kind of guide how we move forward.
So
And
Glenn
Glenn,
is a wellspring of knowledge and experience. But I would point out that this is an Imperial County issue, and what I would intend to do is follow their lead. I think our letter is in support of their efforts. If our advocacy team can provide some guidance, then surely we can do that. But this is certainly within the realm of the authority's jurisdiction to help its member agencies on an issue that has a nexus to the Salton Sea. So I'm glad that we were able to bring this forward. But my intention would be to connect with CEO Lang and the advocacy team from the county and make sure that the letter aligns with their goals and objectives. And if Steve and Glenn and Nick can help participate in that conversation and enhance its probability of success, that we do that. I think that would be value added.
And again, my only interest obviously is the water quality as it ends up at the Salton Sea. And if there's areas to improve the water quality, I think that we'll be in a better position to addressing some of the issues that were said in public comment in terms of hydrology and water quality.
And I appreciate that, but I think that the health and well-being of the communities at and around the sea are also important.
So can I ask a question before we go on?
Yep.
So of the $10 million set aside, so we got nothing, the $1.6 million goes to the Conservancy. So is the balance available for future allocation? How does that work?
Yes.
that's correct. That presumption is they'll go back to work at it in the next budget cycle. And then that would be our opportunity to advocate for a portion of that remaining balance.
So I wanted to make sure Nick had a chance to share any comments and thoughts if he had any.
No, it's great. It's a great segue because that's really laser focused on the remaining 8.3 million within this $10 million director. So wanted to talk about the support that we built up throughout the last few months, and that can also help with the previous discussion on the water quality grant, and then talk about next steps. So, as part of this, frankly, it was about getting the Salton Sea Authority at the table for these discussions. Like, if you're seeing any statewide article, Account Matters or Sacramento Bee, I think they all agree that this was historically a difficult year to really engage on the budget issues. And so we spent a lot of time really, the old saying of bringing your own lawn chair to the table. And so with building the support and the respect for the authority in the Capitol as part of this conversation was a lot of our work. And we're really proud that statewide organizations like Aqua, the Nature Conservancy, actually included our direct request in their broader Prop 4 implementation request. And so those are partners that we're really building back up again in this context that we could also use to elevate and leverage for individual member agencies, projects and things like that. We have a new Assembly member Jeff Gonzalez, who has become an ally as well. He did submit a direct letter, a budget request letter on your behalf for the authority to Speaker Rivas and to Pro Tem McGuire. And then we had some really productive conversations with Senator Padilla. And that where it ended was, hey, there's still $8.3 million left of this allocation. Let's continue to have this conversation over the next, essentially between now and the next budget cycle, which would be beginning of July 1, 2026. So what we want to do is to memorialize those commitments, continue to support. I think Patrick's done a great job also of getting local support, building the support around, showing Senator Padilla, showing Jeff Gonzalez, Senator Gonzalez, that this is something that's critical to make sure that, yes, the state has a broader 10-year SSMP, but local projects along the way are going to be absolutely critical. And so in addition to the broad education, it's now it's memorializing those commitments, having these meetings. We welcome each of the board members to engage with us on this. I think it's really about making sure that, again, we're at the table on the Prop 4 allocations. And we made some progress by having them only allocate the first year of their $10 million request from the administration side.
Can we get Marilyn back?
And so that's where we stand. We continue that the fight's not over on this. We're excited that we not only have built a lawn chair, we have a permanent seat at the table now again. And so we're going to be focusing with Patrick and your team on setting up a series of meetings and getting ready for a 2026 budget request that is anchored in very detailed project descriptions and how we're going to use the funds going forward. And of course, using, and I'll stop talking here, using that momentum to support each and every one of you as you are looking to various pots of Prop 4. Our team is happy to engage and help you navigate that process.
And I would just add, Nick mentioned the budget year that begins July of 2026, but the administration will actually start to propose even over the fall, like what their January budget look like. And if we've done a good job and anybody knows any administration officials that are close to this, maybe there is a way to get something included in the early January budget. Obviously, if not, then we'll have to work with the legislature to get it added over the the months between February and June when they have their say on the budget. And I will just say, I think on the water board matter, Glenn did a good job of describing like the process, and I think the head start that you have in meeting with the board chair is a big deal, and meeting with board members before they open up the application process, because there are some limitations at the water board with communications once that begins. So I think that early work would be important.
Thank you. Very informative. Joe.
Yeah, I would just say a piece of context here, and appreciate Steve and Nick and Glenn. They've been great to work with and coordinate with. But to answer your question, Director Aguilar, so our administration's proposal for the Salton Sea Conservancy was $10 million over 4.5 years, that's when we forecast the need of, staff and all of the things that we see the Conservancy needing to do, and what we've been kind of referring to as its creation period. So hiring staff, getting them briefed on kind of the O&M needs of our initial projects, and doing that kind of sequence handoff to them so that they can kind of take that responsibility and run with it, if you will. We requested only $1.6 million this budget year. So, we are very grateful for the legislature for signing off on that. And the reason we, did that is wanting to make sure that year over year, the Conservancy is meeting its benchmarks in order to substantiate, its requests and kind of build credibility, if you will, as a new entity with the legislature. We didn't want $10 million in the first year all at once, because we want to, make sure again that this is carefully sequenced and there are kind of key objectives that the Conservancy is meeting year over year as a condition for getting additional funding. And I think at this point we're anticipating that the annual budget for the Conservancy, once it's fully staffed over a full fiscal year, is about $3 million. We requested $1.6 million because, within our program right now, we're trying to do a little bit of work on our end to set the Conservancy up so that January 2026, they're, ready to get started. And so we're trying to absorb those costs within our program between now and the end of the year, which is why instead of asking for $3 million in the first year, we asked for 1.6. So we're trying to stretch this funding as far as we can, and we appreciate that the authority has additional priorities. We'll continue to work to see what we can do around, bringing as much as we can to the table, whether it's, additional pots of climate bond funding that are competitive that we can partner on, or to the extent we can do what we're doing with this creation period of the Conservancy, partnering with one another and, using our staff capacity to advance our mutual objectives.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. I guess the only point or comment I would say is that not getting anything sends, I believe, sends a message that that I'm not prepared to go into today. But my takeaway from this, and through the hard work of our team and everyone on this board, is not favorable to our standing. And so I'd like to be talked out of that, but that's where I'm at on this. You understand that?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, I know we did a deeper dive on this maybe in our meeting, 3 or 4 meetings ago, but generally, what informed our, budget picture for the Conservancy was really, again, trying to meet the statutory mandates of that entity as we were, as we are required to do. And then trying to take a look at, okay, how can we try to make all of this work, given that there are existing priorities from the authority that we want to support as well. So I don't think, my thought kind of all along has been, we've got all of these priorities and we've got multiple pots of funding now that the climate bond has been approved. And, we had a pressing statutory requirement to stand up this Conservancy in January, which is why, again, we only asked for $1.6 million to do that. The rest of the funding, as these folks said, in the out years will be negotiated throughout the budget process. But again, there's also a $10 billion bond that just passed that has other competitive pots of funding. And to the extent that I think, we can continue to dig in a little bit more on the Conservancy's priorities, how those, allow us to put more project acres in the ground and deliver more benefits for Salton Sea communities. We definitely want to figure out how we can, bring addition by addition to support kind of the work that we're all trying to get done here.
I have to say, I agree with Director Aguilar. It feels like, okay, the funding came in, we got the funding, and the goal was to make sure that we're doing what we can to make the Conservancy flush. And I understand the need for that, but even if we look at $10 million over 4 years, that's 2.5 a year, even giving Salton Sea Authority a bone of $900,000 year one to cover that difference would have shown that there's, give the authority 900,000 would shown that there was some sort of give and take there. But to just say, okay, we've got the 10 million, we're earmarking it, and we're earmarking it solely for the conservancy to get themselves established, sort of, yeah, it doesn't, I mean, it sort of rubs me the wrong way too, because then what's the point of us doing the work that we've done as authority? Just my thought.
So I'd say it's an issue of good faith.
Yeah.
And I think, Joe has been consistent at saying that the Conservancy needs this money. We have been consistent that when the funds were set aside in the bond crafting exercise, it was the Garcia bill. And there was 30 million in there for the Salton Sea Authority and 25 million in there for the Conservancy. And at the last, when the Allen bill moved forward, those two baskets of funding were combined into one line item that didn't differentiate either or, but both and. And I think it was problematic to every member of this institution when the state put forth its proposed use of that funds and disregarded the financial needs of the authority after the authority had been working on behalf of the state for 30 years. Every dollar that the member agencies contributes comes from their customers in support of the state's work, the state's obligation under the QSA. We had a previous agreement with the state that was canceled, and that was unfortunate. But I think that the authority, I know that the authority and its 5 member agencies and its 10 elected public officials provides great value to the state's effort. And underfunding that effort doesn't serve the state well. So what I hear you saying, what I hear the state saying, and I believe it to be true, and I think it's achievable, but we got to go fishing rather than hunting, right? We got to go into different funds and compete for money that in order to achieve our goals and objectives, where the alternative would be to recognize that we're fishing together and that the $10 million should be equitably distributed so that our near-term needs are met so that we can collectively pursue those longer-term funding sources. So I hear you. I'm going to be meeting with our team in Sacramento and invite the state to join us in that conversation to figure out how over the course of the next near term, we can develop a strategy for meeting both the Conservancy's needs, which we are willing and wanting to assist in because they're going to need money in perpetuity. The Owens Lake, they need $75 million a year just for O&M. The Conservancy is going to need a lot more than that. They're not going to get it out of a $10 million bond grant at $1.6 million a year. So I really appreciate working with the state. I think they have been consistent. And I think that if the plan is to recognize the value of the authority and to find the resources so that the authority can execute on its plan and objective, I think that's a good thing. But I think 0 is a bad number.
I want to give my opinion, which is probably going to be very unpopular up here. My opinion is that we need to do better.
Yeah.
My opinion is when my friend Sonia comes in here and I know she's coming to the meeting and she's going to complain, I have nothing to say to her because as the authority, we need to do better. Projects need to get finished. Projects need to get done. I have to go back out to my community and say, well, yep, I haven't really done anything. Projects take a long time. I understand that. But I still think that this is just a way we need to do better. And that's the state sending a clear message. That's my opinion.
And I agree with you because, I mean, and it's a double-edged sword because I agree with you too, because I had recently members from West Shores come to the tribal offices to come meet with me to talk to me about what projects Salton Sea Authority is doing for West Shores and for everyone there. And I'm like, well, I can't specifically say what Salton Sea Authority is doing. I say, I can tell you what I would like to do in my tribal land, but that may not jive, with what Salton Sea Authority is trying to accomplish. So I need to figure out what that middle ground is. But me waiting for the Salton Sea Authority to get plans through or waiting for the state to get plans through isn't going to stop me trying to figure out what I need to do on my tribal lands to help the greater community, because at the end of the day, that's who's down there. And I've had this same conversation since I've been on Salton Sea Authority, which is fairly recently and fairly new. And I've been having the conversations with Patrick and with people that have talked to me is I understand the need for conservancy. That's fantastic. But I do agree that the people factor's been mixed. And how can we get the people factor back in to bring recreation back to the area? And that's what I'm trying to focus on, because that's what's going to help me with economic development on my tribal property. But again, it may not jive with what Salton Sea Authority is doing, but I can't wait. It may not jive with what Conservancy is doing, but I can't wait. And it's sort of a catch-22 for me, because I'm going to be on both bodies. And I'm going to be looking at competing factors on both bodies. But on the flip side, I know what we have to accomplish. So we have to figure out how we cannot be fighting for the same blood out of the same rock, and figure out how we can work together to get things accomplished. But I agree, Salton Sea Authority does take times to get things done. And I know a lot of constituents hate to hear we're working on another plan. But the problem is, we always have to say we're working on another plan, because the state's not going to give us money until we say that we've done another plan. So we're stuck in this revolving door. I mean, it'd be nice if there was a lot more philanthropists out there just to hand us some dollars to get things done. But, you know, we're going to have to deal with this bureaucracy, but we have to figure out how we're going to deal with it together. Because if not, like I said, we're all going to be fighting for the same coin, and all of our interests are going to be different. And that's why we're supposed to be here as a body. But I agree, just saying, okay, but we understand the authority hasn't gotten as much as they can get accomplished done, doesn't mean that we should ignore the fact that they've been trying to get things accomplished. But now that we have this bright new shiny rock, this is the one that's now going to get the funding to do what it's got to get done. There's no guarantee that's going to be a faster process just because they say it's going to be. So it's I don't know, we're stuck in a conundrum, and we have to figure out how to get out of it. Because like I said, Conservancy might say, okay, we're going to do things and it's going to be new, it's going to be fast. And if that doesn't happen, guess what? We'll form a whole nother group to do a whole nother process, and we just I feel like we keep on moving the finish line. And in the meantime, the community is just falling on the wayside. So we have to figure it out one way or another.
So I would notice the next item on the agenda is an update on the strategic planning process.
Yeah.
That's a great segue. Let's get off of
And-
this.
And to that end, I think part of our challenge has long been what people think we should do, and even the board members think we should do, and what we realistically should be doing. You know, the state is responsible for building the projects, and I think that the work that we're doing on the Conservancy, the work that we're doing in the information, education, advocacy space are things that collectively our member agencies can do. But I think as a result of the strategic planning process, we will crystallize and clarify who we are, what we do, the resources we need to do that. And so that when we're working with the state, with our federal partners, with the community, they know who we are, and we cannot have expectations that will go unmet simply because it's not who we are.
Thank you.
Hello.
Pleasure to have you, Beatrice.
Thank you. Good morning, President Dockstetter, Vice President Singh, Treasurer Martinez, and board members. Good morning. Thank you for letting us present our update and setting it up so beautifully. Thank you for the transition. I don't know how we did that, but love it. Appreciate it. Next slide. I'd like to start with a little bit of introductions. When we started the strategic planning process, you all hired CV Strategies and had Tara here with you. CV Strategies is still here. I just did want to mention that Tara has moved on, but the CV Strategies team, we are a team of over 20 strategists and professionals and do everything in-house. So we'd been a part of your project from the behind the scenes, whether you all were aware of or not. We've been moving forward with our team the same way. So there should be zero changes in our leadership and in moving forward. But I did want to introduce our team. Not here with us this morning is Erin Lacombe. She's the president, CEO, and founder. Many of you know her from her days. She was the news director at KESQ and went on to open the CBS affiliate with Jackie Lee Houston, 2 Emmys, really tied in to 2 things, media and water. Amazing. Amazing for this process, plus has been a desert resident for about 25 years now. I'm Beatrice Aslamboli. I am the Chief Operating Officer. I've been a desert resident for 21 years myself, with CV Strategies for more than 10. And my background is in law. And I do a lot of zoning and public policy work in my other former life. The other thing is I'm a resident. We all felt the first thing I learned about the Salton Sea was, oh, smells kind of funny today. And then I drove by once and was going to film a video for work in Imperial County and told my partner in the car, "What's that? It's so beautiful." He's like, "That's the Salton Sea." There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect to what your community knows and thinks they know about the Salton Sea and what is actually there. So since then, I've visited many a times and got to enjoy some of the fun things around the sea, whether they were art exhibits or the Banana Museum or just coming out with my kids and showing that, hey, we have a body of water here that's incredible. For me personally, my uncle talks about it in the 50s because he was cool and he was out here. And we want to see that again. And then my other partner in crime, Jennifer Poland, who is a CV Strategies veteran and back on this team. Jennifer comes from a background with water, wastewater, and both state and federal legislative experience. She's worked in Sacramento and DC, so really feel like this is the team that understands this project. Plus, again, with CV Strategies, we do everything in-house. So we do have a team of the designers, the media team, the web team, and video. So in order to really accomplish all we do is, you see a few of us here, but there's a whole lot of hard work being done back in the workshop. And between us, we have probably 60 years of PR experience, and none of us, of course, are 60 years old or anywhere close to that, right? But between the three of us, we're going to bring a lot of experience to this team. Little bit of an update on where we are. And then I think that what we're going to discuss today is where we are and where we're going. Just keeping you all informed. So far, where we are, we've been conducting interviews with one-on-one with board members, and thank you all for participating in that. We still have just a few more left and finalizing those right now. We're noticing key themes in these. We're trying to, that's our goal, but they are just popping up, and it's the same ones, is the partnerships, financing and funding. These are recurrent themes that we're seeing. Project priorities, and that's a big one because as directors, you all have a little bit of a different angle, and the community and constituents that you serve are different. So putting together those priorities and what is the authority's role? That's a big one in this time. I think with the conversations that we are having around the Conservancy, it would be really good to identify what your role is, who you are, and where you fit in the puzzle. So we're going to work on those things that are popping up. Right now, we are drafting the plan. The outline for the plan has been drafted, as most of the board members have been interviewed, and we're seeing the key themes, and we're just filling in where we need more information. So some of it very much came from you all, but some of it is you're talking to outside stakeholder groups and what is the relationships, and observing those things from an outsider point of view is a very important part of your strategic plan. And then we're incorporating that feedback into the plan. One thing that that is really important in the process is sort of what was happening right now on the dais is the actual ability for you all to just sit around and talk. As we see these emerging themes, prioritize. Here are the 6 themes. Let's look at priorities. Let's identify those and with each other, because we all identified them to us separately, but it's great to hear that, oh, wait, after 10 years, all of a sudden, this person's priorities moved a little bit forward, this and ours has moved back, whatever those priorities are. So right now is a perfect time for us to bring our information to a workshop. We would love to sit around for 2 hours, hopefully 3 if I can get 3 hours of your time. We understand the importance of it. And very much work towards bringing the themes together and discussing them around a round table where we're not, constrained by time or what's on the calendar. So looking over to our next steps, we'd like to finalize the interviews right now, and we're on track to do those. We do have a board workshop that was scheduled, and I thank you, Lisa and Patrick, for helping us move the workshop. The invitation that you got for the workshop was for an afternoon, and this morning we just talked and thought, well, how about we move that to a morning workshop where we'll meet for some coffee, sit around for a few hours. I'll bring in some lunch, and then after lunch, finalize. Here's our priorities. Here's what the plan is going to look like. Because putting together just another plan, I saw all of your faces. We can't just make plans. We've got to have an implementation plan. We've got to have a plan that all of you believe in and stand behind. So that's the purpose of the workshop. We're not going to agree on everything. We never do. My sister and I don't agree on everything either, but she's still my best friend. So, but we're going to move forward with things. And that is going to work into refining our plan, where all of you feel really comfortable that you've been heard and issues that you want addressed are addressed and mentioned in there. And then adoption. With adoption, we'll put together an implementation timeline, because that kind of a plan that sits on a shelf is not helpful. But if we have actual benchmarks, and we'll come up with those benchmarks together so that I'm not saying what should happen in the first quarter of 26. You all know. But let's set some benchmarks to move our plan forward. And in that comes the transparency and the community outreach that you need. Because when they see that there is a plan and here's kind of where we're leading the plan, and then there's small benchmarks, there's small wins. We're just going after these huge wins and falling short. So I'd love to be able to set up some benchmarks for implementation. And then when you get them, have those victories to share with the community so that they feel like they've been heard and are moving forward. Because we're not here to just do another report or another plan. And we've heard the community. We've heard you all with that. That is a big reoccurring theme, but with an implementation plan, we feel like we can help at least outline what the markers are and how to get there.
Thank you, Beatrice. Okay, so I'm gonna move back to the workshop. So the same day, but in the morning is your plan for the date change? Is
Just
that
spoke to
correct?
Lisa about that this morning. Would that work for the board?
I have a Zoom at 10, but I will if the board wants it, if it
We can-
works for
we
them.
can-
It's gonna depend on the rest of the board, to be honest.
We can poll the board separately, and
The 27th, I think, of October.
October
It's a
27th.
Monday.
we were able to clear most board members for that date in the afternoon. We can.
The afternoon is fine. But
So I request this morning to move it to November 12th or 17th.
No, that was for the
That's something
board
else.
meeting,
yeah,
for next, our next board meeting in November.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Not, so I would recommend that we, leave it where it is if we can't move it. And we will poll the board members to see if their calendars will
Okay.
allow it to move to a morning session.
Mhm.
CV Strategies believes that a morning session, for all the right reasons, is better than an afternoon session.
don't blame them.
So.
I have to order half
so-
as much
so if we
coffee in
can-
the morning than I do in the afternoon, keeping you awake.
So if we need to move it, so if we're able to move it, then we would like to move it. If we're unable to move it, we'll keep it right where it is. But I don't think we need to spend a lot of time
Okay.
negotiating calendars right
No.
now. And we'll make that determination shortly after this meeting. We'll poll every board member to see what your availability is, and we'll make that decision.
That is thank you. I really appreciate that because that
Okay.
coming together is really an important piece of this puzzle that will help us and the board understand goals moving forward. And in your November meeting, I'll be back to give you an update after our wonderful workshop.
Excellent.
Any
Thank you so much.
questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
Now, what we expect to have in November is the draft final.
Yes. Yes.
Which the board will consider.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Colorado River and Salton Sea.
So,
Authority.
much like our interaction and discussion and engagement with our friends from Imperial County, it was suggested to me that to the extent the authority could assist without interfering or involving itself in the activities on the Colorado River, that we should be in a position to do so. The last thing in the world we want to do is interfere with important negotiations. The second to last thing we want to do is nothing when there's an opportunity where we can help. So I have been in touch with Jennifer at the Colorado River Board, and candidly, she
Jessica.
was enthusiastic. Jessica, I'm sorry. And she was enthusiastic about finding a way that we can give voice to California's position in a responsible way that just gives, additional support for the effort. And if that's doing nothing, then that's what we should do. But if the collective agency, the Salton Sea Authority, can express the desire of the state of California in those efforts, then I just wanted to make sure that I was pursuing in an appropriate direction from the board. And if not, that we kick the rudder and send me off in a different direction.
So Madam Chair, if I may, or Madam President, if I may, I think we could benefit from an update from the Colorado River Board as far as the two important dates that are before us, and one important date is November 10th, and then the second important date is February 14th of 2026. Those are signature dates, and I think what we need to understand as an agency that represents two counties, two water districts, and a sovereign nation, on what impact those dates may have on our communities. And so I think, Madam President, that we would benefit from a better understanding of how critical those dates are. Obviously, we have CVWD here, we have IID here, and those negotiations continue, not only from an upper and lower basin perspective, but also an intra-California perspective as well. And some of that information is sensitive, but I think what we do need to understand is those two dates are approaching fast. And so I think we could benefit from a overview of the situation. But more importantly, I think we need to really start talking about impacts to our communities from an economic, social, and environmental standpoint. So I believe doing nothing is not an option. But I think doing something like addressing what the potential impacts would be is something that we have a fiduciary responsibility and a fiduciary role to represent our communities. I heard this morning regarding we just need more water for the Salton Sea, and that's great, but that involves pixie dust and a magic wand. But we do have some very critical hydrology issues. especially in the two largest reservoirs in the country, which have an impact on the Salton Sea. So I am for us getting an update, Madam President. I just don't know if anybody else would be opposed to that. But I think before that update, Mr. Patrick, we do need to get into some sort of work group and start understanding what those impacts may be if they get supersized by some federal type of intervention.
So I was, that's certainly achievable. But I was thinking that a letter of support or a resolution from the board properly crafted and formed by those people who are engaged in that, said the right things would be helpful. And maybe that's far-fetched, but whatever we can do, that's appropriate. I just wanted to make sure the board was aware, engaged, and that we were not getting outside of our lane.
I appreciate those comments, and I appreciate it because obviously the Salton Sea is something that is being discussed in those negotiations, especially with the contributions that both of our water districts can make, cannot make. And so I would also caution, until we really know who's taking what as far as reductions, will we really know the effect that it's going to have on the Salton Sea? I mean, obviously there's going to be an effect. So I
don't see anything that we would do would be without the clear-eyed
Right.
understanding of the actively involved agencies, right?
Sure.
It's strictly a supporting role,
Right.
using the authority, because it affects every member agency of the authority and every resident of the community who this board was elected to represent. And so I think that if there is a way for us to help, we should help.
I agree 100% and appreciate the outreach. So
May I?
Well, I just want to thank one of my board members for suggesting it.
Look at that here.
There was.
That's fine.
none of us.
Busted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say, yeah, I think, doing something in terms of a support position would be something to consider. But also, following the president's comments, the negotiations now that are going on, there are different agencies that have different objectives. And so I think getting to the point where we could agree on a very generic statement of support is something that I could certainly, get behind, but it would be it'd have to be very generic.
For sure. Understood.
Thank you.
Any other comments before we move on? All right.
Madam Chair, I am going to have to excuse myself. I apologize.
We will miss you.
Yeah, right.
Party time.
Thank you.
Alex is
Sorry.
leaving. Framework task force update.
Since we last spoke, I have had an opportunity to meet with a variety of agencies, individuals, community stakeholder groups, and others to further inform our thinking and our direction in this regard, conversations with board members. And I've come to the firm belief that there are agencies that are responsible for protecting public health and safety. And I think that those are the agencies who should be doing the work. And so what I am proposing to do, what I have planned to arrange, is a meeting in the next couple of weeks with appropriate representatives from the air boards, from CARB, from the Regional Water Quality Control Board, to further drill down on this issue, recognizing there have been significant public sentiment expressing concerns about maybe lack of information or questions they don't have answers to, and begin the process of building what I have long referred to as a consolidated framework where where people know, and I see this not as a study, but as a program that should be durable and sustainable over the next 20 years. That people know that this framework is in place, that the people who are doing their job, and maybe they meet quarterly, or maybe they start off meeting monthly, or maybe they meet semi-annually. And so my initial meeting is to, with this 4 or 5 groups, saying, who else should be part of this conversation from a regulatory standpoint? I have received fulsome support from the university sector that want to be involved in this work. But they can be directed by, the questions being raised, the issues being elevated. I think that it needs to start with the agencies, involve the universities, and ultimately it needs to be grassroots. Ultimately, it's got to get down at the community level. We had a presentation last time about community science, and I think that community science has absolutely, and everybody agrees, absolutely has a role to play in this program over time. It's just that program has to be informed by the science and the methods and the standards, so that it can all be consolidated and analyzed and responded to in a responsible way. So my objective would be, before our next meeting, is to pull together a more detailed outline of how this comes together, along with, and this is where this conversation with our friends at Cruise Strategy and our collaboration with our state partners, it's going to require some resources, right? And that was really kind of foundational to part of our ask from the Prop 4 money, is some money to help get this program started. It's not going to happen for free. It's going to take a little bit of work. I don't think it's going to take a lot of money or a lot of work, because I think that the agencies are already doing it. There are agencies that may be tangentially associated with it. Some are in the room that may have some nexus to the sea. And we want to explore who's doing what that has some responsibility to the public for changes taking place at the sea and the impacts on human health as a result of that. But I can tell you, to a person that I haven't spoken with, I spoke with CARB, I spoke with South Coast, I spoke with Imperial County, I spoke with the Regional Water Quality Control Board, I spoke with UCR, and everybody, it's just putting meat on the bones. And although the JPA has 15,000 employees in aggregate, the Salton Sea Authority is a team of 2 and a handful of professional consultants. We simply are going to need a little more horsepower in order to answer the questions that are being asked. I think we can do it timely and we can do it responsibly, but we can't do it on an empty tank. So what I'm going to be doing is putting together an outline of what I think the costs are. I think that will inform our conversation next year in Sacramento, when we go up against Joe and the Conservancy and start beating up for our equitable share of those funds. I think that's part of the conversation that we have. And it doesn't matter to me which pot it comes out of. And I think that's what Joe's saying. Yeah. We need to work together to find the right color of the right dollar for the right project at the right time. We're dealing with that across the board. And I think the more we fight over nickels and dimes, we're going to lose sight of the dollars. And I think we need to work together to make sure that the right dollars are being used for the right purpose in a timely and responsible fashion. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Madam President.
Yep.
So good idea. And sorry I missed the conversation at the last board meeting, but I'm going to raise the same question that I raised before, which is that by creating something like this raises expectations in the community. And so, Patrick, when you come back with your plan, I think it's really important to include some sort of a schedule of outcomes and, products or actions or something that can correlate with this planning effort, because otherwise this is going to be another effort that's just going to go in the tank. And I don't want to be part of that.
So did you say Gantt chart? Oh, I love Gantt chart.
I think it's very doable, but I want to be clear that I think that most of the work is already being done. And it's just a matter of finding where the gaps are, and how to deal with things that might not fall into the regulatory standards that are constantly being done, and making determinations. The way I approach the problem is, Owens Lake, right? And saying, if we had one air board and one principally responsible party and one constituent of concern, this would be a whole lot easier, right? But we got two air boards. We've got the state, we've got the federal government, we've got, you know, individual landowners, we've got a whole variety of issues and responsible parties. So it's a little more complex, but I don't think that it needs to be operationally that much more complex. We just need to figure out what the questions are, make sure we're getting the answers, and making sure it's getting done.
Good.
I think, to answer your question, I think it's very doable.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, can we move on to project updates?
I do have brief project updates on both projects. I would say North Lake project, we did ask. We are inquiring whether or not we can move that next meeting because Joe is not available for that. So we are going to have some important discussions on the North Lake conversation at that meeting. So we want to see if we can move the meeting date for the next meeting. And the reason for that is we have been working, the county and the authority have been working closely with the state, studying the technical information that has been developed, studying the resources that are available, studying the county's initial plan for implementing the project, looking at the work that the state is doing adjacent to that, listening to the felt needs of the community for recreational improvements. And we are in a process right now where we're digesting that, and we're hoping that in November we can come back to the community and say, we started here, we listened to, what you had to say, we looked at what could be done now and incrementally over time, and this is what we think is the direction we collectively need to move forward. We haven't resolved all of those issues yet. Those conversations are continuing, but I think that, again, I think the state and Joe in particular has been acting in good faith to find the right answers to meet those needs. Managing expectations is a tough process. Someone suggested to me once we ought to just tear the Band-Aid off. I'm going to say, but I think that's kind of what we have to do sometime. We gotta figure out how to get to achievable, reasonable projects that we can get done in the ground and not wait 20 years to get it done. So I'm kind of rolling that up. I'm going to bounce from North Lake because it's the same story at Desert Shores. We hired Nichols Engineering. They brought on board AECom to support their work, and as a result of that, we have very detailed, actionable technical and hydrologic information that will inform the project that can get done. And so we are working now to schedule a meeting with the community stakeholders at the last part of this month to discuss the options we see are achievable based on that information and get their input. And I think that there are other facets to that, but it is a money issue also. Things cost more now than they used to. And the technical challenges that we are facing were not anticipated when these projects were first conceived. So we're navigating these waters. And I think this, coupled with what we're doing on the feasibility study, is moving all of this work, coupled with what the state's doing on the SSNP and ramping up their work, is moving all of this in a very positive direction. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions? No? All right.
Well, that was too easy.
Too easy. We're looking forward to the next meeting.
Yeah.
For North Lake. Very excited. Okay, moving on to November meeting date and location.
So we did try to poll the board members. I don't know if we were able to reach everybody with feedback on their availability for the November board meeting.
Did get responses back.
Okay.
I responded, just FYI.
Okay. So our intent was, if we had clarity on whether we could do it, we were going to do a resolution at this meeting so that we didn't have to cancel the next meeting and schedule it as a special meeting. I think that our intentions were well intended, but I think given the time and efficiency, impractical to implement. So I don't think we're in a position right now
Okay.
to reset that, but
Okay.
we will,
It will be
we will
reset.
finalize this by the end of next week at the latest. And if we are going to change that meeting, we will send out a notice of cancellation and a notice of special meeting that the November meeting date and or time will change.
Okay.
If that is acceptable to the board.
That is, thank you. And then yes, maybe, good though, let's do it next week, only because our calendars fill up.
Yes.
So I'm gonna feel terrible if I said, oh yeah, I can do it, by the way. Something else came up. Thank you. Okay, moving on to reports. Federal report, Lisa Moore, who has been waiting in suspense to give her report.
I have enjoyed every minute of the waiting. It's nice to see it's nice to see everyone. Things have been interesting here in DC. From a sort of most recent news, Ted Cook had been nominated to be the Reclamation Commissioner out of Arizona. His nomination was just withdrawn day before yesterday. That's sort of that doesn't happen every day in the world of nominations, which I used to handle. So that would, potentially set back having a political appointee in that post. I know David Palumbo is admirably discharging that duty, but I think it is sort of an interesting statement about where potentially negotiations are and kind of how the upper basin may have felt about having a lower basin person as reclamation commissioner. In the world of nominations, we have been waiting for some time to get an assistant secretary for water and science at the Department of Interior into position. That nominee, Andrea, has been pending for some time, is a pretty consensus person, somebody that Patrick actually also knows. We've been hopeful to get, her into position in part because what we have been working on is trying to establish a little additional communication between the Corps of Engineers and the Department of Interior on the Salton Sea feasibility work that we're doing. And what I mean by that is just the ability of potentially Interior to have some communication with the Corps about making sure that that work stays on track. It's tied to the Colorado River in as much as, this is federal work that is ongoing, that if the Department of the Interior and politicals within the department were to communicate to the Corps, hey, this is a very important thing to keep on track, to not narrow its scope, some of the things that we're talking about in the context of that work. That would be very helpful. You may have read the Senate has changed. There have been holdups on nominations. Typically, nominees move by individual votes. Most nominations move by something called unanimous consent. Democrats have not provided consent to move any Trump nominee since the president became president. Senator Thune just changed the rules to facilitate batching nominees so that they could move through. And the Assistant Secretary for Water and Science is one of those nominees that's in a package that should move tomorrow. I think that'll be helpful for all of our work to have a political person at the top of those issues over reclamation. And I think hopefully provide us with some additional ability to have that communication. When we were talking earlier about, Colorado River and how we could be helpful and ways to, address the sea while we know, right, it's kind of a moving target. You're not exactly sure, what the requirements will be. I think that the fact of having that work, it's being undertaken by the Corps. I do think that's a potential for, something that the authority members can advocate for. It wouldn't take anything away from the work that's going on the Colorado River. It's not a money ask of the Department of the Interior. It's really, the Interior Department sort of transmitting to, I think, the Corps that, hey, this is an important piece of the puzzle of Colorado River. And you, the Corps of Engineers, are doing good work there with the state of California and the Salton Sea Authority. And, doing some of that kind of political work, I think, would be something that maybe folks would want to consider and could be helpful. The appropriations process, as you may have read, we are heading toward a government shutdown. There is work being done on a continuing resolution that would have potentially 3 bills that have moved thus far. That does not include the energy and water appropriations bill. That bill passed the House already and has a plus up for the Salton Sea within Reclamation's budget of $2 million. In the Senate, that bill has not had a hearing or markup because there is dispute over the top line funding number for the bill, with the Republican chairman wanting to cut the bill back and the Democratic ranking member not wanting to do that. That is where we are seeking an earmark to provide a little additional money in FY26 to the Army Corps of Engineers to keep the feasibility work moving quickly. And so, you know, that is something that we continue to work on and advocate for. But in the event we don't end up having an energy and water appropriations bill, right, working with the Army Corps to provide that funding to itself administratively is sort of the play. And so that's why I just sort of flag that for you in your Colorado River work that the agencies of the authority do, and that is a place where that could be very effective kind of messaging. So anyway, does anyone have any questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We appreciate it. So I see on here, we still don't have anybody from from the Bureau of Reclamation assigned. I'm assuming we won't until we actually get a commissioner. I'm just guessing. Does Patrick know that?
Well, there is a representative working out of the Temecula office that we have been dealing with, but I don't know that he is.
Who is that? That's okay. All right. Okay. It's okay. All right. So maybe we will get one assigned eventually.
Provide an update on that.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, let's move on. Well, do state advocacy? We kind of covered that, did we not? Or you have more to tell us?
No additional updates, Chair. Just a contextual reminder that the governor has until October 13th to sign and veto bills that have been sent to his desk, and then the legislature will reconvene in January 5th after the new year. So the fall recess and winter recess will be working on the priorities we discussed earlier. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Moving on to the state of California, where I think Joe's giving the report today.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. So I want to start by acknowledging our state controller, Malia Cohen, and extending some immense gratitude to her. As I think we've discussed in previous meetings, our state process for processing invoices can be sometimes a bit lengthy, and I know that has been a challenge in the past for us to meet our payment deadlines with the Army Corps for the long-term restoration feasibility study that we're doing together. Just want to update everyone that the state controller personally reached out to us yesterday to make sure that our upcoming payment to the Army Corps was fully taken care of. Obviously, she is a constitutional officer with 39 million other constituents, so we really appreciate the personal outreach from her, and we're glad to see that our partnership with the Army Corps continues to be strong and moving forward. I maybe we'll skip the North Lake pilot updates for the next meeting, but some really good progress there working with General Manager O'Dowd and the Riverside County team. They've been phenomenal to work with as always. Never a dull moment, always very challenging, but we continue to grapple with the challenges before us and find the most workable path forward. As the cruise team mentioned, SB 105 does include funding for that first, really half of the fiscal year for the Salton Sea Conservancy. There's a statutory deadline in the bill that says the Conservancy shall be established by January 2026, seeing as how how the Conservancy does not currently have any staff. I and a couple others from our team are going to be trying to do our best to make sure that they're stood up by January. So you'll likely be hearing from me over the course of the next couple of weeks just on some housekeeping things to get ready for that timeline. Our team is currently working on some outreach that we want to do, specifically a public meeting in Bombay Beach to talk about the new funding and project that we're implementing in partnership with Audubon, and then also to give an update on our veg project. And Ms. Herbert, really appreciate your comments, want to be able to speak to them more directly when we have that meeting, particularly around our veg projects and how we're trying to stimulate more growth there, because we know it's been challenging to date. We got some work to do there, but we've also got this other project with Audubon, and we're really trying to prioritize a trail as part of that project so that it's really great an asset to the local community. And we also have some ideas for how we want to call in the local community to partner with us on developing some components of that project. So we'll have more to say next month.
You don't have a date yet for that?
We are trying to land a date with our partners, and I don't want to get ahead of them.
Okay. No, it's fine. You can say no. It's fine.
But
Great. You're going to email me though when you have a date.
yeah.
Perfect. Or email Patrick and he'll email it out. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We also have a community engagement committee meeting next Thursday, September 25th at 10 a.m. Miguel Hernandez is lead on that, and I can put anyone here in touch with him if they need to or are interested in joining. We will be covering a bunch of project updates, and then I might talk a little bit about the climate bond and broad strokes and some of the funding that we're seeing coming out of that. And just the very, very last thing here is want to extend deep appreciation to Director Arroyo. I see him in the crowd, and we've been in the audience, I should say. And he's been a phenomenal partner for our team. We've had some interesting land access questions and concepts that we've been working through at a staff level. And I know State Parks is working on their general plan update. We're very excited to work on that with them and to be helpful however we can. And they've just been phenomenal partners with us as of late, spending a lot of staff time to help advance our priorities. So that's what I would say there. So thanks.
Thank you, Joe. At this point in time, if there's no further questions, we will move on to Mr. Enrique Arroyo. If you could please come to the microphone. And thank you so much for being so patient. I always feel bad for you guys, whoever goes towards the end. Perfect.
Of course. Thank you, Madam President. And thank you for that, Joe. We continue to make progress on the Salton Sea State Recreation Area. By the way, I'm Enrique Arroyo, Ocotillo Wells District Superintendent. We're also in charge of the Salton Sea State Recreation Area on the eastern side of the Salton Sea. We continue to make progress on improvements to the park itself. This latest update I'd like to give is on the Visitor Center parking lot. Phase 2 of 3 was completed on the resurfacing, and we're hopeful to have in the next few months the last phase of the Visitor Center parking lot resurfaced and restriped as part of the minor improvements that we could do now ahead of the general plan, as Joe was mentioning. Other improvements include a brand new CXT that's forthcoming over at the jetty. We're still in environmental process of that. A new walkway, we're in the phase 2 of that, should be done in the next couple of months. The walkway would connect the jetty to the visitor center. And the additional improvements include interior displays in the visitor center. I'm meeting with someone from our headquarters in Sacramento out at the park in the next couple of weeks to look at the displays and see where we could make improvements. The sooner the better. And we're also working on exterior improvements, exterior signage. I know we've talked with Mario Llanos and Miguel Hernandez and a couple of the tribes that we've met in the past couple of months about signage improvements specifically for not just the park, but also the Salton Sea itself. And finally, additional improvements include accessible campsites, RV sites, if you will, at Mecca Beach. We continue to look at that. I don't have a date for that, but we continue to make progress toward that. Overall, these are some of the smaller type of improvements that we could make in the interim ahead of a general plan that can call for the larger types of improvements, which require the dedicated capital funding. And that's why the general plan is needed, for the commitment of larger types of funds. Not to say that these are small, because they did take a significant type of investment, but overall, these are smaller types of investments we can make at this point ahead. One other effort I'd like to highlight is we were in discussions with CV Link about the regional trail linking into the park. So we are supportive of a trail into the park that would link not just the northern side into North Shore, but also the southern side down into Bombay. We are taking a hard look at that. There is no trail that goes the entire distance of the 16 miles, but we are eager to make that happen. And I think that's it. We continue to look forward to being a partner on the efforts, not just of the Salton Sea Authority, but of the SSMP as well, and others. I can entertain any questions at this time.
Thank you so much for being here. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, thank you for the report. I know that when you and I met, you were discussing and with respect to the plan update and outreach program that was associated with that. Is that something you can discuss?
Yes, we are. We don't have a date, but very soon here we will kick off our public outreach phase, which is basically the public kickoff of our general plan process. So we hope to outreach to the community, to our neighbors and our stakeholders and our visitors at that point. I don't want to give a date, but very, very soon. So we're in the final stages of making it happen.
Well, I think that park is an important piece of the puzzle for what's going on at and around the sea and what's going to go on at and around the sea. And I want to make sure that we're engaged with you in that planning process to contribute to successful outcomes. So appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Your reports, your division is the parks is one of my favorite ones actually of this meeting. So, and I think just an idea, you should get 5% of Coachella Fest proceeds for your endeavors. Anyway.
We do fill up during Coachella.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I've heard that. I have heard that. It's very much a selfie spot, Coachella Fest, right? They get a lot of visitors. So thank you.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We got to tie that in somehow. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's an interesting comment, just because from an economic development standpoint, the untapped potential of those types of facets of our community that could be exploited. And it's going to be those types of opportunities that are going to, contribute to the economic vitality of the communities around the sea. So.
Thank you. Moving on to Salton Sea Action Committee, Alan Pace, I do believe he was online.
He was. There he is.
Oh,
There he is.
hi, Alan.
Hi. Gotta see what I can do to become your favorite report.
Uh-oh.
Trying to unseat the state parks, too big a task for me. We are still around, still working, getting ready to start our field trips again. We don't have anything on the calendar yet, but that's one of the things we're working on. I talked to Beatrice and Jennifer yesterday, so we will be make ourselves available for any of the work that they're doing. But that's all I've got to say for this month.
Thank you very much, Alan. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to Executive Director reports.
Madam
Comment?
President, the only other thing I would add is just a brief update on the feasibility study, which I think is due for a broader presentation to this board, which I'll schedule for our next meeting. But what we have been doing is working with our state and federal partners in addressing a couple of things. One is the early increment projects that were committed to in the VTAM. They work with the Corps. There's just an unlimited number of acronyms, but it's the vertical team engagement memo or something of that sort that outlines the scope of the project. And there are some, intentions to pursue 2 projects early in the feasibility study. One is in the northwest quadrant of the sea, which could involve some tribal lands, and the other in the southeast quadrant. I think the one in the southeast quadrant we're finding is challenged and may present some real hurdles in getting done on an accelerated basis. So that is, there's some diligence being spent on evaluating what we do with that. But overall, from the state's standpoint, they are a fully committed partner in the implementation of this feasibility study. The federal government is committed, but they are concerned about fiscal constraints with the new administration and whether or not they're going to be able to fund the full scope of the project. We believe that that's absolutely going to happen, and the authority and its team working together with the state will work tirelessly in DC to make sure it happens. But they had to go through an exercise to say, what happens if we don't get any additional federal dollars? So that process has been ongoing, and we should have a meeting within the next week or 2 at the highest level of the core team that will inform how and what we move forward. Our expectation is that the project is still on track. We've got a quality team at the federal of 20 to 40 people on each call of various disciplines involved in this. We started out with 12 or 13 different options, strategies, and we've been, I would say we haven't been winnowing them down. There's been a certain amount of consolidation because a lot of the projects have similarities and contribute to each other. But I would expect in the next several months, the team will put forth what will likely be a final array of projects that will be further evaluated technically and feasibly to come up with a preferred plan, which is due for completion in October of 2027, which I think is amazing. If we can come up with a plan that is a preferred plan by our federal partners, agreed to by the local stakeholders, which if completed and successfully issued, a chief's report would be eligible for 65% federal funding for an ecosystem restoration plan of the entire sea. I think that'd be a pretty big deal.
Patrick, if I could just add, right, and you think about that timing and kind of the broader kind of picture of what we're talking about in terms of the Colorado River, you could just have a lot of momentum around that chief's report. So the chief's report actually has to come to Congress, and the Congress has to act to authorize that. So that's the timing, I think, aligns really well as long as we can kind of keep pushing and keep this now really robust team that we've put together moving the work forward. Sorry to interrupt.
I think that's the point, right? That's the point. And this is in no way, shape, or form intended as a disparaging comment, but in order to do this, it takes resources, right? And it takes commitment on the part of the membership. This is really a critical effort that the authority, frankly, has led since its inception in when was it, Lisa? 2007?
Yeah, so I would say, just to toot our own horn, so when we started working on securing federal funding for the sea, at that time, the debate in DC was all about this is a state of California problem. There really wasn't a federal presence. And so really it was work over many years. I kind of liken that to some of the things that the cruise strategies guys are talking about, to really elevating the sea as a federal issue. And so that culminated in a new feasibility authorization, or a new Corps of Engineers authorization in 2020. That was an effort that was led by us. The state of California came on later to embrace that work, but the authorization was one of 3 that was secured in that WRDA in 2020. We got appropriations then to begin the study. All of that additional, that sort of identifying, building public support, advocacy that it took to make that happen played out over the course of years, and it was led by the authority. This is not meant to disparage the state of California. The state of California has an office back here that that works to advance the state's priorities. The state's just a big state, right? And so they have a lot of priorities. And so one of the things that we're able to do from an advocacy perspective that I think is really a niche that is not filled by the state is that we identified, what it was going to take to get our congressional delegation to support something like that, and really sort of single-mindedly pursued that for a lot of years and secured it. Having the state come on as a joint local sponsor of that, a couple years into the process, was absolutely pivotal and important. And it's not to diminish that at all, but that is sort of that is a piece that the authority fills, and I think our state legislative folks are filling that as well, where it's just, having that, it's the number one priority for us, right? We're not competing against other things that the state's really got to get done as well. So anyway.
It is overarching in my opinion and belief. It's overarching. So we talk about the projects that we're doing. Nothing is more important in my mind than getting this feasibility study successfully completed. It's not really a study, right? It's an authorization for funding of a specific project for the long-term restoration of the sea. And it's unfortunate that it has a name of feasibility study, because it's just another study in the mind of most people. But if we can demand the successful completion of this effort, and we can stay the course, then we will have tools in the toolbox to really deliver long-term sustainable results for the people who live here. And that's my elevator speech.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Next up, we have items for the next meeting. I would request, hopefully we could maybe have a CV link. Maybe they could come and do a presentation, because I don't believe we've had that.
Absolutely.
I've been having multiple conversations with them with different entities. And then also, if it pleases the board, I did take part in a bi-national water summit meeting. This was with Nathan White, Aegis, and it was very interesting. And we've had the presentation before. This is doing a pipeline from the Sea of Cortez into the Salton Sea. However, he has gotten more momentum behind him. And even Fiona Ma, the California State Treasurer, was present at this particular meeting. So he is getting some state presence there. So and because we only meet every other month, I would appreciate if we could also maybe have a little presentation and his progress.
That might be helpful.
Okay. Those are my two comments. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add on to the agenda for the next?
One thing I forgot to mention, Miguel is organizing a tour of the SCH project in celebration of Latino Heritage Month on Saturday, October 4th. We'll send out an email with more info on that, but should have mentioned that. We're getting a bus. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's 2 pickup locations that I can't remember right now, but it's in the email and we'll get you information on that. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Does anybody else have any other comments before I adjourn the meeting? Just a couple minutes over. All right.
Close.
With that, we will have a meeting in November sometime. Meeting's adjourned.
It'll be.